Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're going to tackle a question that I think fuels so much of our political frustration. When a problem seems so obvious, why doesn't Parliament just fix it? I mean, you know that feeling, right? You see some huge problem that just goes on and on and on, and you can't help but wonder, why doesn't Parliament, the very center of our political universe, just step in and sort it out? And we're talking about really persistent, grinding issues here. Housing projects get stuck in limbo, the NHS is constantly under enormous pressure, the courts are backed up for ages, and schools are struggling. It's completely natural to look at this list and point the finger straight at Parliament. I mean, isn't that their whole job? Well, it turns out the frustration we all feel might actually come from a fundamental misunderstanding of what Parliament is even for. This is what our source material calls the just fix it problem, and it gets right to the heart of why our expectations and the reality of politics are so often out of sync. Okay, so here's the absolute core idea we need to get our heads around. Parliament isn't some giant project management company. It's not designed to directly run hospitals day to day, or build houses, or employ teachers. Its real purpose, its actual job, is something totally different. So, Parliament's real job? It's much quieter. And let's be honest, it's way less satisfying to watch on the news. It's supposed to represent us, the public. It's there to carefully examine what the government wants to do, to deliberately slow things down to make sure we don't make huge mistakes, and to force politicians to actually explain themselves in public. None of that really looks like fixing things in the way we want it to. And this brings us to this really interesting tension, right? The tension between what looks like work and what actually is the work. We often confuse the loud performance of politics with the real underlying purpose of Parliament. So on the one hand, you've got the performance, the loud, shouty debates that always make the headlines. It looks active, it feels like something is happening. But then, on the other hand, you have the actual purpose. That's the quiet, nitty-gritty committee work, hours spent listening to experts and asking really awkward questions. This is the real engine room of Parliament, even if, from the outside, it just looks like they're stalling. And this is where we run into what our source material calls the incentive problem. See, because all of us, the public, the media, we pay way more attention to the noise and the urgency. The whole system starts rewarding that. Noise gets mistaken for effort, a sense of urgency gets mistaken for competence, and that crucial quiet work, that careful examination starts to seem unimportant or, even expendable. Okay, so this leads us to a really fascinating paradox. The very thing that seems to slow everything down, that scrutiny, is actually the one thing that stops everything from completely falling apart down the line. And this is the obvious question, isn't it? I mean, at some point you just have to make a decision and get on with it, right? Come on, surely all this questioning just gums up the works, it just leads to paralysis? But here's the thing, and it's totally counterintuitive. Think about it. The biggest policy disasters, they almost never happen because an idea was looked at too closely. No, they happen because a decision was rushed, because people were under incredible pressure, and because all the uncomfortable little details were ignored with the excuse that, oh, we just don't have time. So you can almost map out the life cycle of a bad policy. First, there's a ton of pressure for a quick fix. Then, to get that speed, proper scrutiny gets skipped. The policy gets launched, but its hidden flaws eventually cause it to fail over time, leading to huge cost overruns or collapsing public services. And here's the kicker, the final irony. Parliament gets blamed for not spotting the very problem it was stopped from properly examining in the first place. So what all of this points to is a fundamental mismatch in the system. We end up getting the Parliament that we reward, which isn't necessarily the Parliament that we actually want or need. And this quote from the source material it absolutely nails it. When we judge Parliament as if it's some kind of delivery machine, it starts acting like one. It focuses on the big announcements, the tough deadlines, and looking decisive. And look, this isn't necessarily because politicians are trying to fool us or anything. It's just that any system will naturally adapt to what it's being rewarded for. This table, wow, it just lays the whole problem out so clearly. We say we want long-term thinking, but we actually reward speed and decisiveness. We say we want to prevent mistakes, but we get excited by loud announcements. We say we want assumptions to be challenged, but we reward visible action, no matter how poorly thought out it might be. And when you see it laid out like this, a lot of the political behavior that just seems totally baffling, well, it starts to make a weird, uncomfortable kind of sense, doesn't it? So what's the result of all this? We end up trapped in this weird cycle where we complain about bad outcomes, but at the same time, our own expectations are squeezing the time and space Parliament needs to do the slow, careful, upstream work that would have prevented those bad outcomes in the first place. It's a tough pill to swallow, but in a way, we're kind of part of the very problem we're complaining about. And that leaves us with a really big, powerful, final question to think about. If we accept that Parliament's most valuable work is the slow, careful, detailed stuff, then maybe the most important thing of all is simply time. How much time does Parliament actually have to do that essential work? Because scarcity, a lack of time, it changes behavior everywhere, and Parliament is absolutely no exception. And that's a powerful thought to end on, isn't it? If Parliament's most important work is also its slowest, how much time are we actually giving it? Maybe valuing that quiet work of scrutiny over the loud performance of politics is the first step to getting the outcomes we all want to see. Thanks for watching.